Welcome to Design Downtime, the podcast where we celebrate the joys of living a balanced creative life. I'm your host, Guy Siegel, a design director in Toronto, Canada, and I invite you to join me on this journey as we redefine what it means to be a successful design professional. Let's break free from the shackles of hustle culture and embrace the full spectrum of human experience, because life is too precious to be spent only in pursuit of productivity. Today, I'm excited to talk to Tim Van Damme. Tim, you might also know him as Max, has been a software UI designer for over 2 decades at a wide variety of tech companies, including Instagram, Dropbox, and currently Figma. Lately, he's been getting more and more interested in designing physical objects, specifically luxury mechanical keyboards and keycaps under the moniker MVKB, Max Volter Keyboards. He lives in Belgium together with his wife, 3 kids, 4 chickens, and a dog. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. That was a lovely intro. I definitely I support what you said about getting rid of the hustle culture.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, this is 100% the reason why I'm doing this. As your bio mentions, we're going to talk about keyboards.
Yeah. What about them? It's only the thing that kind of took over my life for the past, 5 years at this point. I looked at when I started doing keyboards, and I was both surprised with how long it's been and also surprised with how short it's been, looking at the amount of projects that I've done already.
Let's start simple with the question I always start with, which is the origin story. How did you even get to this?
Lockdowns. I think we all picked up one or more weird hobbies during the lockdowns, but it was a time where all of a sudden we found ourselves more at home than we planned to. We found ourselves more in need for a home office. I think at that point, I was already working remotely from Belgium for companies in the US. So the remote part didn't really change for me. What did change was, again, like the time we spent home. And I feel like a lot of people around that time, they kind of wanted to up-level the environment where they were now doing their work. And I was kind of the same. I had my little desk. It wasn't too crazy. It was in a very, very small room in the previous house we were in. I had my 2 monitors, but I wanted to dress it up a bit. And for the longest time, like I've always been using, like most people, the thin Apple keyboards, which are absolutely fine and really, really well built. But there was something, there was something there that I didn't love. So I started Googling about other types of keyboards, learned that the search term that you should be Googling for is mechanical keyboards, because they're actual like pieces that are moving and that are touching each other that cause keys to trigger. And from there, I bought one, like a fully pre-made, I think an early Keychron one. Keychron today is like a more recognized name as it was back then. I think it was only their second board or something they were doing. Anyway, it arrived and I liked it. Didn't love it immediately. I liked it, took it apart. I was surprised to see that it's all like very standardized components. Most keyboards, obviously, that you purchase, they feel, you'll never take them apart, right? Or you go to like the doctor's office or anywhere else, like they have a keyboard that comes with the computer, and that's kind of it. But this was different. This was kind of built to be experimented with. So I think, what did I do? I found a website, because obviously I'm a designer. I was like, hey, I like the little letters and numbers on these keycaps, but I'd love to do my own take. Like, I don't agree with all the typographic choices or the spacing or whatever. So I found a website that, not cheaply, but yet very poorly, where you could design your own keycaps. No clue what I was doing. I just put something together. But then that order arrived, and it felt like magic, because the keyboard I had purchased on the internet, I ripped off the keycaps and put on my keycaps, and all of a sudden it was mine. It felt like mine. Not because I had designed the caps, but more because I had swapped something out and I had customized it more to my liking. I think that's like, for not just for me, but for a lot of people, that's the point where you fall into the rabbit hole, like hard and fast. Started designing more keycaps, learned more obviously about the production process, got to know factories in Germany, China, the US. They're really, really good factories all over the planet, and just started doing it more and more, learning about like how to find people to purchase it, how to work with shops online. This is all a very condensed version of a much longer story, but that like it became my creative outlet. I've always been fortunate that I love the job, like the day job that I do very much. I've always been surrounded by people smarter than me where I can learn from. And to me, that's happiness in a job. Like, are you learning and are you surrounded by the right people? But this creative outlet where I was in charge, I was responsible for the wins and the losses, basically. It was nice. It was that thing that I feel like I needed in my life to balance things out. It makes the day job more balanced. It helps me with the balance and everything.
I'm curious to know about that first keyboard you're designing. How did you approach it? You came into it with a lot of ideas. Here are things I would change based on some of the typographical decisions. What do you then do?
I approached it as a software designer. I think that's kind of how I would like describe my general style. Like, you have different types of keys. You have your alpha keys, your numeric keys with the special characters on it, and you have your modifiers. Those are the three big groups. So what I did, I would design a component in Figma, obviously, for that specific type of key, and I would reuse that. So my designs got very, very predictable, not predictable, but like there was like a mechanical precision to them because of with the component, like, you know, everything was always in exactly the right place. And that wasn't really a thing with like, that is not really a thing with most other keycaps that were out there. So yeah, I don't know, that's how people have described my style, and I appreciate it. But mostly it's, you know, what font do you pick? You can pick like a very funky, exotic font that you might grow tired of really quickly, or you could pick more of a workhorse that is a very boring font, but it's also something that you don't get bored of. Yeah, you don't get fed up about looking at it all the entire time. Sorry, I'm constantly looking to my left because of the wall of my projects is there. Kind of helps me put it together. And then like pushing further on that, obviously it's more than just the designs on top of it. It's about the color choice, but that like those two types of choices don't really work without a theme. And that's the thing I really love doing. Like the keycaps, I'm talking about keycaps and keyboards separately. We can dive into keyboards later. The keycaps they're very simple objects. They're plastic cubes almost, and you print on them, and you have a certain amount of colors that you can use, or unlimited depending on the factory you're working with. But the theme around it is, to me, what sells it in a way, and it's like the fun thing to come up with. And if you go to my website, you'll see that instead of like, oh, here's a photo of, you know, this keycap project, and here's a photo of this other keycap project, or like kind of showing what's in the box. It's like, no, imagine there's a world where, you know, you have these keycaps, and then I'll design a keyboard around them to really fit the theme, and then I'll design a whole room around it to kind of really set the mood. So you're not buying project A from me. You're kind of like, you want to go for that vibe. I always compare it with like, you're not buying a motorcycle. You're buying how you think how cool you're gonna look on that motorcycle. You're buying the feeling of having a motorcycle. I used to have a motorcycle. It was a dad bike, but I'm so proud of it. Yeah, so that's like, it's just like a creative. It's a big package that you have to design for, and the way it goes is like, I'll spend way too much time on it and barely make any money. Such a niche hobby, but that's totally fine. I cover the costs, and like, I get something produced and out there in the world, and that, to me, that's success for me. I don't care whether we sell 250 sets or a million sets, as long as we have enough people interested to kind of convince the factories to spin up their machines to start production. That's a success in my book. And I get to have it myself. I get to see it. I get to use it. And the fact that other people are also interested is just, that's a big bonus.
I'm curious to know, how do you prototype a keyboard? Do you have a prototype that you can just write on it and see how it feels, or do you 3D print it? What's the process?
I wish I had a 3D printer. My office isn't big enough. Like, I literally don't have room for it. I'm trying to figure out how to fit it in. Most of the time, like, when I'm designing a keyboard, I'll do it in Blender. So Blender is a free open source 3D app. It's amazing. It's free and yet such high quality. It allows me to start playing with a very simple shape, kind of go from there. Again, everything is standardized, so I know exactly what's the size of key, how tall does the board need to be to kind of fit all the internals, the PCB and some of the other parts that you need in there, and I'll iterate. But throughout it all, it gives me the opportunity to do 3D renders that look hyper realistic. I'll make sure that the lighting I use is it's HDRI, and it's a photo of like the inside of the room. So you don't have one perfect light on it, or like with the 3 lights setup that photographers use. Like, no, you're like, it looks like the keyboard is sitting on a table in a room, and just that realism gives me a very good idea of what it will look like in the end after it's been produced. That's kind of step one. That's the easy part. That's the fun part. After that, everything becomes trickier, because if you want to go from there to making it real, you need a production partner. And so far, I've been very lucky that about 45 minutes away from my house, someone with a couple of CNC machines lives, and he specializes in keyboards. It's like a weird cosmic coincidence that he happens to live almost in my backyard. I'm actually visiting him tomorrow to talk about a couple of projects. So he has all the machines, and we became friends over the years. So we'll often like, I'll show him designs, and then we figure out like, how can we make this real? Like, what are the materials we want to use? What are the prototyping steps that we have to go through? Like, often the design is just one part, like making it real. Like, can we do the insides and all of that? Can we find the material in blocks large enough? That's like requires a bunch of prototyping and often reworking of the design as well. I have to figure out all of the other components that go inside. It's a lot more work than a simple set of keycaps. But then it's kind of the same thing. We figure out like, how can we find enough people in the world, not just Belgium or not just Europe, but worldwide, who are interested in this project? Because these projects are like, for keyboard itself, the projects are so small batch, because they're handmade pretty much. And that means that you're not buying a whole lot of materials, which means that the materials are more expensive than if you would buy the pieces in the thousands, stuff like that. And so, yeah, it's like, all in all, it's a very expensive project that you're buying from 2 idiots in Belgium, basically, who are putting it together. And we do that through something called a group buy, which is basically like a Kickstarter, where we're like, hey, we're gonna build this. Here's a prototype. We'll send the prototype to like a content creator, which is usually a streamer on Twitch, and they will build the keyboard live on stream, which means assembling it like almost like Legos, because it's not much harder than that. And we get people interested. For my last project, we knew we couldn't manufacture a whole lot of them, because it was a very complex project. So we capped it at 250 people. We did a raffle, and I think over 2,000 people wanted to be part of it. And then we had to like randomly pick the people that would be able to purchase it. Like, this is all before they've even purchased it. It's such a weird hobby. And then we, once we receive all the funds, my friend can order the materials. We order all the parts that we need, the packaging, and tomorrow I'm going to go over to him and see how we're going to fit everything inside that packaging. Yeah, it's a process compared to keycaps, where it's basically like, I have a design, I know exactly how the factory works. I sent them a file, and then a week later, I get prototypes of the keycaps in the mail. It's a different flow. All of this made me really fascinated with the production side of things. Like, what can you do? What can't you do? What are the materials that you can use? If you pick a specific material, there are always certain limits that you'll hit. But then there are different like other limitations with different material. So this is very creative use of like trying to do as much as you can within the limitations that you're dealing with, which I find like whether it's like physical design or digital design, that is like the super fun. Like how much can we squeeze out of this situation that we're in? So yeah, the figuring out part of it. Again, it's like being surrounded by people smarter than you, where you can learn. I think that's a bit of the thread in the story here.
I actually really wanted to explore more the working within those constraints, right? Because a keyboard has a sort of a certain expected shape. Like you said, there are usually 3 types of keys that you find on a keyboard or organized in a certain way. How do you play within those constraints? Where do you push the envelope?
That's a good question. Kind of depends on how safe you want to play it. There are, we call them layouts. And a layout is, if you kind of close your eyes and imagine, like the biggest keyboard you can imagine is you have the keys where you type, you have your arrow keys, and then you have the numpad on the far right, and that's like the whole keyboard. That's one layout. That's what we call 100%. Now, if you take that layout and you remove the numpad, you have what we call an 80% or a TKL, a 10 key less. Things get even weirder here. But what if you, instead of having your arrow keys next to your typing keys, you merge them together, making it more compact, and you have a 65%. There are people who forego arrow keys completely, and they put them underneath a modifier key. So you hold one key, and then, for example, the WASD become the arrow keys at that point. That's a 60%. That's already very exotic. Like I think 65, you still have the arrow keys, and anyone can use the keys. But once you go 60% or smaller, because we're not done yet, that's kind of that requires a certain level of craziness on one's end. But a lot of people use it. I've used it too. You can train yourself to do it. It's a bit trickier, and you can go again smaller than the 60%. So if you want to play safe, you pick one of the bigger layouts. I think especially people who use Excel all day, they want their numpad. They want all those keys available there. And kind of depending on the job, you can get away with a TKL, you can get away with a 65%. But if you want to go more extreme, more experimental, you go smaller than that. Or you can go smaller and split it up into 2 parts, a split keyboard. You can remove the row on your keyboard with the numbers. I mean, it gets really crazy, but also really fun out there, because it's already like a niche thing. And the smaller the keyboard, the more niche it gets, and the more interesting types of people you come across. Like definitely characters there. I like occasionally I like doing one of the crazy small ones, or like supporting those layouts, because they're just so grateful that someone is out there thinking of their crazy layout that no one else makes keycaps for. The community aspects of this hobby is insane. Like some of my best friends are people I've never met some of them. Others, like I'll go to meetups around Europe, lots of driving, hotels. I've gone to the UK for meetups. I've even gone to the US for meetups. In 2 weeks, I'll be in West Virginia for a small keyboard meetup, just because I know that a lot of people who will be there are like people that I've been chatting with for years, and they're from all over the world, and they happen to be together there that weekend. So it's worth spending a ridiculous amount of hours on a plane for, basically.
I also saw on your website that you have keyboards that don't really have characters on them. They have like ink spots, for example. Tell me more about playing with those conventions of what goes on a key.
I think it's exactly that. Like, what has to go on there? Nothing. For it to function, you just need basically the plastic. That's it. So again, it goes to like how comfortable do you want people to be when they use this set, or like a bit more straightforward, like how many people do you want purchasing this project? If you put all the characters on it, like yes, it's a safe bet. Like people will purchase it. If you go a bit more extreme, like the blotches, there's a smaller audience out there. I don't know. It's just fun doing something that hasn't been done before, even if only a handful of people ever purchase it. If someone purchases it and then they take a photo of that set on their board at home and they're happy, like I'm happy. That's so like that's the best feeling ever. Yeah, you don't really need legends. I got a set of keycaps where you can't see any legends unless you pull up a black light and then you see them. And like I can barely type on it. I can kind of type blind, but not everything. Like my special characters, I'm always hunting and pecking. But it's cool as a piece of art, almost like as a statement. Like hey, you can do whatever you want. When it comes to the keyboard that you have in front of you on your desk, no one can tell you what to do, because all a keyboard does is it sends a list of the characters that you press to the computer. And it's such a simple piece of hardware. There's just so much flexibility. Like, what does it look like? What's the size? What does it sound like? Even what does it feel like? All of these things you can customize them to your liking, and no one else in the world has the same keyboard as you in front of them. Like a piece of IKEA, like it's a piece of IKEA and it comes with instructions and it's okay, easy to kind of put together. But you kind of have something like, hey, I put this together. Or people who build their own gaming PCs, for example. Like that might be a better example. Like the components are highly standardized. Putting it together, it's a lot more complex to put it together than put together a keyboard. But there's something like there's a part of you that is now in this project. Like I didn't just purchase it off the shelf. Like I built this with my own hands, and now I get to use it. And it becomes like it goes from object to self-made tool almost. And the tool part is another thing that I love. It's not just something you put on the shelf and looks good, but you actually use it multiple hours a day.
Is that something that goes into your thinking when you're designing a keyboard? The fact that you're taking this from something that is, for most people, use it without even thinking about it, right? It's a very subconscious use of it. And you're intentionally drawing attention to it, right? You're making it an object of art in some cases.
You can go two ways there. One is like with software design. When you design software, you don't want people to notice the work that you did. You don't want them to notice a beautiful button or a beautiful table view or whatever. You just want them to use it, do the thing that they intended to do, and get through it. And that's one approach you can take with keyboards. If you make it very approachable, both the letters on the keycaps, the layout, like the size that you use, but also the shape of the keyboard itself, like how heavy is it? Like when you touch it, what's the feeling? What's the angle of it? Because the angle kind of determines what your wrists will do, and there are preferences there too. But a couple of projects I have in the pipeline now are like they're meant exactly like that. They're meant as like they're on your desk, and yes, they look good, but there's nothing you notice specifically about them when you use them. One of my earlier projects was a bit of an extreme design, and it was not the most comfortable object to use, but that was meant as like a design piece. Like I imagine people who care a lot about home interior, who have that keyboard on their desk in their home, and like they have visitors, and like, oh, this keyboard, like it will be noticeable. But then other projects, again, it's a complete opposite, and you almost don't notice it. That's fun. It's fun to play with that range. It's fun to have the freedom to kind of decide what you wanna do there. And to me, like, depends on my mood. Am I in the mood for something a bit more extravagant? I can go design that. If I'm in a mood to design something that's like deliberately boring, I'll go that route.
I noticed the first when I looked at your keyboards is the color. When does the color come into play for you when you're designing a keyboard?
I'm so bad with colors. Like I'm like laughably bad with colors, both digital and definitely when it comes to physical colors. I almost never choose colors. It's more like the color chooses me. What I mean by that is I have a lot of like online, a lot of sources of inspiration that come in. It's a lot of old print magazine covers, like an account I follow on Twitter or on Threads, or like old industrial design. And whenever I come across something that I think has like really lovely colors, I'll save that for later use. And that's usually how I start off with colors. I'll start with that set that is in that image, and then tweak from there just a little bit. Which, yeah, I'm bad with colors. And then other times, like I said, like the color chooses you depending on the materials that you work with. I love working with raw materials for keyboards. Obviously, aluminum and steel, they look the same, that metallic look. But I love working with brass, copper. I'm now experimenting with semi-translucent solid plastics, like all things that don't really need a layer of paint around them. But also these materials, they will age differently. A piece of brass, for example, typically you put a layer, like a transparent layer over it, because it kind of has like a funky smell to it. But you can choose to, like, if there's a certain part of the keyboard where you know that no one will ever touch because it's on the back or something, you can choose to leave it without a coating. And then that will oxidize and it will change colors. And then if you do accidentally touch it with your finger, like your fingerprints, like what we call it, the oils on your fingers will slowly eat away at the color of that piece of metal, and it will kind of live. Yeah, I love that. I love kind of like honoring the raw materials and working as much as possible with that. And then sometimes it's just like, like I get a color in my head. When that happens, it's usually like something that's really, really, really tricky to replicate. Like my high vis project is like the tennis ball yellow, for example. Took me 4 years to find a keycap factory that could mix the plastic in a way that the vibrancy of the color didn't get lost. It's really easy to tell a factory like, hey, do tennis ball yellow. It's really hard to actually have them do that. I paid so much for prototypes, and when they came back, it was just like they were dull. They were the type of yellow where the light kind of just bounces off like most other colors. But then I found like my factory in Germany, they made a yellow so intense. God, the way it works with neon colors, if I understand this correctly, is it absorbs and then reflects more color than the human eye can see, and that's why it has that like extra pop. That was it was a project, but it was like, oh, I wanted that color, and we did it. I think the next endeavor I want to embark on is like car paint like colors, which is very, very tricky to do for smaller projects. You need many layers. It's extremely prone to like dust, any dust particle that kind of gets in that, you immediately see it. But I have a coding expert also nearby where I live, and we chat and we learn from each other. And they might tell me like, oh, I can do A, B, and C, and I'm like, oh, can we combine A and C? And you see their face going like, what the hell are you asking about? But then like, oh yeah, actually, yeah, we could. And then you can do something like a color or like a surface treatment that hasn't been done before.
Do you have a favorite keyboard that you use, or do you rotate based on mood or what you're using it for?
There's a lot of rotation here. I have a lot of keyboards, and I think sometimes it's like when I also listen to a lot of music when I'm working, and sometimes I can't seem to figure out like, oh, what's the right album. Like I need an album right now, but like you kind of go through a bunch and then you hit on it. Sometimes it's the same with keyboards. I start working, I'm like, oh, this keyboard isn't doing it for me right now. I'll switch it out like a bit longer. Like, no, I thought this was going to be the one for today, but it's not. Swap it out again. And I think the funny thing there is like all of the keyboards that I've designed so far, they are solid metal or like machined from solid metal. They're quite heavy. And the board that I end up most of the time it's like a lightweight injection molded plastic board that's made by some friends of mine that was super cheap. And yeah, that always makes me laugh. Like, why am I still doing the heavy boards while I personally like the cheaper stuff? Actually, that brings me to a really interesting thing where I have trouble using my own projects sometimes, because when you're producing physical objects, they're never going to be perfect. They're not going to be like large things wrong with them, but like certain details will be off. And then it bothers me. It absolutely bothers me because I designed it and I know exactly how it's supposed to be. Probably no one else is ever going to notice it. So when I use like a project that one of my friends designed, I don't see those imperfections because I wasn't the designer behind it. And at the same time, they're like, "Oh my god, like the factory really messed up that key." I'm like, "Oh, did they? Oh yeah, I can kind of see it. I think I know what you mean, but not whatever." Yeah, it takes me about a year after projects arrive, where I'm like, okay, I can finally live with the small imperfections, and I can actually use my own projects.
Before we finish, I have to ask, who is Max Voltar?
Oh boy, many years ago, I played Counter-Strike with friends. Remember LAN parties? That will give away my age. And I never had a cool nickname. I tried some like song titles, whatever. But at a certain point, I got to know the band, the Mars Volta. It's a very eclectic hard rock band, whatever. I fell in love with them. And then I started playing with the name. So the Mars Volta, I went to Max Voltar. And very simple as that. Didn't put any thinking into it. Used it for Counter-Strike. And then Twitter came around. And I was pretty late to Twitter because that social media fad, that's never going to fly. But then when I did want to sign up, none of the short names or anything was available. And it was kind of like the first time that I needed a nickname. So I just I'll reuse Max Voltar. And I've been using it ever since on the internet for all my usernames. What I didn't expect to happen is walking on the street in San Francisco and someone from across the street going like, "Hey, Max." I'm like, "Who the fuck is Max?" I'm like, "Oh." So the nickname kind of took a course of its own. I've also, I've been pushing that nickname more forward because I don't really care about my name. It doesn't matter who I am or what type of person I am or whatever. Like I prefer to have my work speak for itself. And then Max Holder kind of became the designer. I did a poll. Was it 2 years ago? I did a poll on Twitter, and I was like, "Hey, do you know me as Tim or as Max?" That poll got a lot of votes, and it was almost perfectly 50-50. So I don't know what to do now.
And with that, Tim, where can people find you?
You can find me as Max Voltar on most platforms. All my keyword stuff lives on mvkb.com. It's the most I ever spent on a domain, but still no regrets. TimVanDamme.com kind of points you to all the other places.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for the fun conversation.
This is all for this episode of Design Downtime. Thank you for joining me. And until next time, I hope you enjoy your downtime.